California has been in a state of emergency since March of 2020, and the people that helped provide the guidance and set the standards for the workplace is Cal-OSHA. So we are really excited to have Dan here. And then we thought to give us the latest on, what kind of the goal is to have more consistent guidance that synchronizes what the Centers for Disease Control, the California Department of Public Health, and the sort of what that means for the workplace going forward around face masks, physical distancing, testing, proof of vaccinations. So the governor lifted some of those pandemic related restrictions, as many of you know, so we'll find out more about what that means from Dan. And then also we thought you may need some resources, and our friends at Bolton, both on the health and safety side, have some sort of frequently asked questions and some of the approaches that some employers are taking, and also some tools, including one that you get to try out today. So with that, Dan, I think it's time to turn it over to you to find out what's coming down the and a sort of if the goal is to clarify what these new standards mean for employers, we'll turn it over to you.
Let me just unmute myself first. Thank you, Regina. I'm going to share, I created a short presentation, just a very short PowerPoint. And I will provide a copy of this to everyone, and hopefully you're seeing the main slide.
And Dan, we'll keep an eye on the chat. If you guys have questions, we'll keep an eye on the chat. So we definitely want this to be valuable for you. So
yeah, I'm gonna try and keep this presentation fairly short and be more available to answer questions. First off, I'm an area manager with the Cal-OSHA consultation part of Cal-OSHA. My office is based in Van Nuys, and we cover the San Fernando Valley, Santa Clarita Valley, LA County portion of Antelope Valley, Ventura and Santa Barbara counties, and north of the 10 and west of the 5. So downtown and Hollywood, Beverly Hills area. And we have offices throughout the state. First off, I just want to let people know we have a lot of resources available on our website. The new regulations that were adopted yesterday, the first link right there is how to access the changes to the regulation, and it's an easy to view document. This courtesy copy that I have this link to shows you the existing regulation as adopted in November, and then it includes strikeout of language that's being removed and underlines what is being added that became effective yesterday. This has a link also to our sample written programs, but I will let you know our sample written program, the COVID-19 prevention program, has not been updated yet. At least it wasn't yet last night when I checked. I forgot to look this morning. I had heard from one of our attorneys that the sample written program should be posted very early next week. So, and this updated program will reflect the changes that were adopted yesterday. And we have a really good FAQ page on the updates. So I wanted to let people know about that, and just right up front, we have this information. We revised.
Are those slides on slide 2, Dan?
Pardon?
Sorry, I think you're talking about your next slide, and we can't see that link yet.
Oh, you're not seeing the next slide?
No, it's not in presentation mode. It looks like we're seeing your main PowerPoint screen.
Oh, great. Then okay. How about now?
There we go.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, the reason the regulation was revised is mainly because we have enough people now that are vaccinated, and the vaccines weren't available until really late last year, and now that more and more people are vaccinated, it's safer to reduce some of the requirements. And when CDC updated their masking requirements, Cal-OSHA originally had posted a change to this regulation, to the regulations, and we had already posted the changes. CDC then made changes to their masking requirements, and we had not addressed those changes. So we had to withdraw that, make changes, and there were several times the regulation was updated and withdrawn, and then updated and withdrawn again. So we finally, the version that was passed yesterday meets the current CDC and California Department of Public Health face covering guidance requirement. What their guidance is now within Title VIII as a requirement for employers. And the whole purpose of this was to allow employers to start transitioning back to normal work operations. Now, right up front, I would not recommend just saying that, hey, as of now, the state reopened, everyone back to work. There's still a lot of, PTSD, a lot of people that are not quite ready to return to work or unsure of returning to work. I still highly recommend probably having people that return back to work slowly on a hybrid system of teleworking that's still available, and then start increasing the number of people back at the job site at any one time. So those are just some things to think about. The changes were made to the 5 sections, and there were changes made to all 5 of these sections. The main regulation is section 3205, COVID-19 prevention. That was the section that held definitions and what needed to be included in your COVID-19 prevention program. The other 4 parts, the point 1 through point 4, dealt with outbreaks, and then employer provided housing, and then also employer provided transportation. One of the major changes was this last section with employer provided transportation. Originally adopted last November was employer provided transportation to and from work. And that typically was for companies that hired workers in the United States under special visa programs to have workers come in from other countries to perform work. They had to provide housing for those workers and then had to provide the transportation from the housing to the job site. And we always encouraged workers or companies that if you had workers that travel together in the same vehicle, even though that section didn't officially apply to you, but to use that as guidance as a best practice. This update that was adopted removed the last 4 words, the to and from work. So this new section now applies to all employer provided transportation. I'm going to just quickly go over the main changes. We are actually starting next Tuesday holding live webinars where we're going to go over the details and the changes in a lot more detail and go over all of the changes. And that webinar is going to be about 2 hours. So what I'm just going to do in a few minutes is basically hit the highlights of what the changes were. The big change is that fully vaccinated workers without symptoms no longer need to be tested. They don't need to be quarantined after they've had a close contact with a COVID-19 case unless they have symptoms. Again, no face coverings are required outdoors, regardless of the vaccination status. And then if they're indoors, again, they do not need to wear face coverings when indoors if vaccinated. Unvaccinated workers will need to continue to wear a face covering, and the regulation does specify that you really should be pushing for an N95 respirator under voluntary use as the face covering rather than just a cloth face covering. And the reason for that is the N95 is actually a respirator, and that protects both the worker who's wearing the mask and protects the people around the worker, because it's a tighter face piece than just a mask that had a lot of leakage around the cheeks and around the nose bridge. So what that means as an employer, you're going to need to have a supply of N95 respirators available for voluntary use for unvaccinated workers when they're working indoors, or if they're in a vehicle with vaccinated workers. And it basically says you need to make them available upon request to unvaccinated persons. And you also want to make them available to vaccinated persons that if they just feel they need the extra protection. There cannot be any retaliation against workers that are vaccinated, that choose to wear some type of face covering. That is allowed, even where they're not required. We allow people to, if they want to be proactive and still feel they need to wear a face covering, they are allowed to do that. And those people cannot be retaliated against. The physical distancing requirements were completely eliminated in this update, with a few exceptions, again, depending on vaccination status. And there are certain times where physical distancing will still need to be implemented at 6 feet. The physical barriers between workers can come down. Now, as a best practice, I would say you've made an investment already in those barriers. I would not just take them down right away. I would keep them up for a while longer, if feasible, and definitely do not throw them away. Right now, things are looking good. We don't know how long the vaccination provides immunity. We do not know if there's going to be a variant in the future that the vaccines do not work for. So this can go backwards again, potentially in the future, where we become more stringent. So I would recommend holding on to those barriers if you take them down in case they're needed in the future.
Dan, there's a lot of questions about the masks.
Okay.
And so a couple
Yeah,
of
I've got a
things.
couple of them here.
Okay.
Basically, do you need to create a respiratory program if you offer voluntary use of N95s?
Okay, but voluntary use, you do not need a respiratory protection program, and as long as you're using like an N95, which we call a dust mask or a filtering face piece. There you only provide basic training and provide workers with a copy of Appendix D, as in David, of our respiratory protection regulation. However, if you allow the voluntary use of what we call elastomeric respirators, those are the ones made of the softer silicone that have cartridges on them, though they're either come in half face or full face. Those, if you use that type of respirator under voluntary use, you would have to implement a short respiratory protection program that includes a medical evaluation, because those are harder to breathe through.
Can
Another
the
question on
N95s
N95s.
be reused for the unvaxxed?
N95s can be reused, and according to NIOSH, which is a branch of the CDC that does the occupational safety and health research, they're also the agency that certifies respirators to make sure they meet filtering efficiency requirements. They say they can be reused and taken on and off up to 5 times. And after that point, the elastic becomes stretched to the point where it's not providing the proper face seal. And if you think about it, if a person wears a dust mask, an N95 during the day, if they take it off during their break and then put it back on afterwards, that's one time they've taken it off. If they take it off at lunchtime, that's the second time. They take it off at their afternoon break, there's the third time. The fourth time would be when they take it off at the end of the workday, so they could use it part of the next day. So they really would need to be changed out almost daily. You can go a little longer than a day, but they can be reused. But Cal-OSHA typically does not, we don't think there's a respirator, an N95 shortage at this point. And on our website, we have a list of companies, a list of vendors that say they have at least 100,000 N95s available in stock and ready for shipments.
Okay, thanks.
2 more connected questions having to do with vaccinated employees. Can we require vaccinated employees to wear masks indoors? And separately, do you have to provide vaccinated employees with masks if they're requested?
Okay, the first part of the question was, can you require vaccinated workers to wear face coverings? And the answer to that is yes. An employer can always be more stringent than Cal-OSHA's minimum requirements. And then as far as the voluntary use of N95s or face coverings for vaccinated workers, if they request one, you should provide it to that worker.
Last little N95 question, and then we can move on. It sounds like it has to be N95 and no other mask can be used. Sounds like N95 is kind of the minimum that's considered respiratory.
It's the way the wording is. You're supposed. I have to look at the wording again. Again, this is so new that I don't remember the exact wording to how it's worded yet. It says you have to provide a face covering and then really encourage the use of N95s. It really does push the N95s. If there is a reason a person who's unvaccinated cannot wear an N95, don't forget there are medical reasons a person may not be able to wear an N95 or a face covering. They will still be allowed to use an alternative, such as a face shield with a drape, or they would have to maintain the physical distancing from at least 6 feet from other workers and be tested weekly. So there are certain requirements like that. But if for some reason a person could not wear an N95 because the breathing is just too hard, you might be able to, for that person, as a reasonable accommodation, go back to just a standard face covering. But the regulation really does push the voluntary use of N95s. And that's the tricky part is, if you're really pushing it, it sounds like it's becoming mandatory, which would mean implementing a full program. But the way Cal-OSHA wants this is, you really push the N95s because they offer much better protection against the unvaccinated person. And should they end up with COVID-19, that it offers much better protection for their coworkers as the source control. Any other questions on masks?
The very last one here is K95 versus N95.
Oh, yeah. KN95s. KN is a designation for respiratory protections for other countries in Asia. They do not meet OSHA's requirements, because our requirements are respiratory protection have to be certified and meet NIOSH requirements. NIOSH has done testing on KN95 respirators, and they do not provide the same level of protection. So KN95s are not allowed as respirators as an N95. However, they may be used as a face covering. Under our general definition of a face covering of something that's used to cover your mouth as a source control, they work well to protect people around the person wearing the KN95 as a source control. It does not offer the same level of protection to the person who's wearing it as an N95 would. So we're okay as a source control, but they are not a substitute for an N95.
All right, I think we're good on masks for now.
Okay, let me just go through this, and then I want to make sure everyone has enough time to talk, and then we'll definitely have time for leave time for a lot of questions also at the end. I don't know if anyone if there are many people in your industry that provide employer-provided housing, but again, there's some changes to that section as far as when people are vaccinated and dealing with ventilation in the housing units. I just want to point out, though, that there are still requirements from the original emergency temporary standard that stay in place. You still are going to have an effective written COVID-19 prevention program. And like I said, that's going to go up most likely sometime in the next several days on our website, and you're going to need to update your program. Instead of 11 elements, it's going to only have 10 because the physical distancing part was removed. You're still going to have to provide training and instruction to employees. And this update included some additional information that you need to provide training on. You're still going to have to provide notification to the local health departments if you have an outbreak. You're going to still have to provide the written notification to your workers if there's an exposure or a close contact in the workplace. And that was, again, updated on how you do that, and what language and how things like that. The requirements to offer COVID-19 testing to anyone who is potentially exposed to somebody with COVID-19, and then how you should respond to cases and outbreaks. And there are still the requirements for quarantine and exclusion pay. And really the quarantine is really going to be more for unvaccinated persons, or if somebody has been vaccinated and actually has symptoms, because we are seeing, it's fairly rare, but we are seeing that people who have been vaccinated, some of them do have breakthrough and actually can end up getting COVID-19. So those people would need to be quarantined. I want to just let people know we have our coronavirus page, and on that page, on the very top, as you scroll on this page, you'll find these 6 blue boxes. The top one will have the emergency temporary standard. That is where you're going to find the sample written program, and it'll be in English and in Spanish. And if you click on the word English or Spanish, it'll open up the program in a Word document that you save to your computer that you can then tailor. We have industry-specific guidance documents. We've got various FAQs, but the main FAQs are included in that first box, the COVID-19 temporary emergency standards. That first box, I really think, is the best resource on that page. We've got another box link that takes you to other educational materials. Our webinars are now posted. We start our first webinar next Tuesday, and over the next 2 weeks, we're holding 4 live webinars. And you can go to that web page and click on the webinars link and register for one of those webinars. And our capacity is 1,000 people per webinar. And we're hoping that one of these 4 webinars will be recorded well, and we'll just post the recording for people to listen to. And then we also have the Cal-OSHA Training Academy, where we have a couple of videos on just more educational information on COVID-19 requirements, and there's a video for employers and there's one for workers on this page. And if you go to Cal-OSHA's main page, you're going to find the link for the COVID-19 information on the top right under emergency response, the area I have in that little blue box. Also, if you need a source of respirators, of the N95s, under the worker safety and health and wildfire smoke regions, that is the section that has the list of vendors who sell N95s. And they are coming down in price. Originally, when there was a shortage, there was price gouging. So the $1 N95 were up to $3 or $4, $5 each. They are coming down in price. You can use N95s with exhalation valves. They are actually more comfortable. You pay a little bit more for them. And I just want people to be aware, the second little box that I have highlighted under quick links is that there was legislation that requires Cal-OSHA to post all COVID-19 related citations. So any company that's been inspected by Cal-OSHA enforcement and cited, that information is public information and posted on our website under that link. So you can look through that link. Some of the columns are sortable, where you can look to see what's been cited near your, in your city, or look for a specific company name, or you can look industry class code to see what type of, if one of your peers has been inspected and what Cal-OSHA looked for during that inspection. I just wanted to mention, I'm with the consultation part of Cal-OSHA, not with enforcement. We work proactively with employers on their safety and health programs. We act basically like a private consultant, and we're trying to get you to be self-sufficient by educating you on Cal-OSHA requirements one-on-one. We have to be invited to the facility by a member of management. We don't issue citations or penalties. It's a free service. So it's a great resource. A lot of people are afraid that in consultation, because we're part of Cal-OSHA, that we will share who we work with our enforcement counterparts. Who we work with is confidential. with one exception. And that is if we work with a company, when we work with them, we're very clear that, you know, we expect you to correct any hazards that we find. However, if we find anything that's serious or imminent, we're going to give you a time frame to get those hazards corrected. And if a company absolutely refuses to correct that serious or imminent hazard, you're required by federal policies to turn that company over to enforcement. And in my 27 years with Cal-OSHA, I know of one company that was turned over to enforcement because they just refused to correct the hazard. We have our field consultants all have office duty days. So if you have questions on safety and health, you can call our consultation offices and ask a question directly to a consultant. There are a lot of rumors out there. There's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of bad information out there. So you can just, you know, if you hear something like somebody saying, oh, you have to do this, you know, or you have to buy our program, you can call Cal-OSHA and ask the question and get an answer directly from the source. But if you have any safety and health related question about workplace safety and health, that's what we're there for, to answer those questions. And we have 7 offices throughout the state, 4 in Southern California, 3 in Northern California. And if you have operations outside of California, every US state and territory has a free consultation service available. So
Dan,
that's, yeah.
I know that Cal-OSHA focuses on protecting workers, and we're really glad you do. And I don't know if this is more of a Stephanie question or you or a bit of both, but there's a lot of questions about visitors and what, you know, we were emphasizing today how to protect the workers and what the new sort of standards are going to be. But there are some questions in the chat about, you know, the people that we're providing services for become visitors. How do we handle that part?
Yeah, and that's, if you're having visitors to your facility, you set the rules. And you can continue requiring face coverings. You could still, if you're going to have meetings or meet with people individually or have a service counter, you can keep your physical barriers up. It's up to you to decide how you're going to address your workers' safety when they are exposed to members of the public. Because remember, when it comes to the vaccination for your workers, on our FAQ page, there's as part of the definition of fully vaccinated, it states that employers need to document the vaccination status of their workers. You could either ask for a copy of ask to get a copy of their vaccination card. You could look at their card, not maintain a copy of it, and then just keep a spreadsheet of who's been vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. Or you can rely on self-reporting. I can never say the word attestation. I think that's the word, but self-reporting. And the concern is that people who are not vaccinated may not be truthful about it. So that's why sometimes you might want to just be proactive as an employer, and because you have the responsibility of protecting your employees from the public, you know, what if they have public interaction. So you could still require, even if somebody's vaccinated, you could still require that visitor to wear the mask. You can keep the engineering controls in place, things like that.
So all that is so useful. Really appreciate the update. And I know that the more we learn, the more we'll have to ask. But I thought maybe, Stephanie, we could shift gears a bit to what you are seeing at Bolton with the kinds of questions that are coming up, the kinds of strategies that employers are using, and then, you know, we can kind of circle back to more questions.
Great. Yes. I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think Jeannie wants to kick us off here. So let me go here.
Yeah, if I could real quick, just, share, first of all, say thank you to Center for Nonprofit, Regina and Aaron, for including Bolton in this webinar. A lot of you on the webinar we know, we work with, and we're so excited that you're here. And for those of you who don't know us, we provide insurance and employee benefits and risk management, and this is part of it, to over 200 nonprofits, and we're very proud of that. But I also want to make sure I talked about our foundation. So if you don't know about our Bolton Foundation, I think Center for Nonprofit can raise their hand and say they are a recipient. That I absolutely would love to chat with you about the foundation. Today, we're talking about returning to work, and I think, you know, our thought was, what are the health and safety pieces from an employer standpoint to keep our employees safe? We know they're nervous, they're anxious. We're nervous and anxious. I'm still in my kitchen, as you can probably see, you know, getting our employees back to work. So Stephanie Nobriga, who's going to be presenting, she's our health and safety manager at Bolton, and she's been guiding our nonprofits throughout the pandemic on the compliance, the best practices, recommending surveys of what to do. So she's going to be talking about some different tools and tips. And then she's going to wrap it up because she is a certified ergonomist and yoga instructor with a little bit of chair yoga. And I think that when we think about health and safety, we forget about the day-to-day of stretching and exercise. And I'm sitting in my kitchen on a kitchen chair that I shouldn't be working on for 10 hours a day. So ergonomics are not the best. So doing something like this, I think, takes us out of the stressful moment and something to think about with your employees and when you're doing meetings, and a quick stretch, a quick yoga, you know, minute. So she'll wrap us up with that. So that's my quick little intro, and my information, it will be at the end of this. So please reach out again if any questions on this as follow-up or anything about our foundation.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeannie. I appreciate it. And hello, everybody. I just wanted to say that, first of all, we talked about forms and self-attesting. So we have created a form. I know that there's some, I know one of our partners, Fisher Phillips, have also created a form. So if it's something that you're looking for, you can reach out to us and we can get that self-reporting, as Dan called it, form. And I just wanted to give Dan kind of a high five, because Dan and I have history going back, and he's done a lot of training in my past life. And I have to say that Cal-OSHA consulting is a great way to check on your program, bring somebody in that's very, very friendly to you and just wants to help you to create a better workplace for your employees. So thank you, Dan. And then I just wanted to talk about some issues here that I know that all of these are top of mind for us, and it affects our day-to-day operations in California. So the new ETS has been an ongoing saga since late May. I don't know about you, but I've been listening in on the standards board meeting. And Dan mentioned, yesterday was the last meeting, and some of you may have been on that. The meeting was very lively, and all the meetings have been very lively and emotional. Most of the public comments have been against use of N95s, mask mandates. And of course, the question of vaccinated versus unvaccinated staff and the consequences to businesses in California. Not to make light of it, but it has been somewhat of a soap opera, these meetings that we've been sitting in on. So now we do have the new orders. They are in place. And so how do we keep our employees safe and protect them and protect their privacy as we return to the workplace? How do we keep our employees safe? And we want to provide you with some thoughts on what to expect beyond the ETS and how you can keep your staff safe as we return, or maybe how not return. As Jeannie was saying, she's in her kitchen, and you can tell that I'm in my den. I've got my Peloton behind me. So you know, some things to consider. And Dan mentioned these, but let's kind of go over them. And that would be, for instance, the hybrid work models. If you're on the fence or you're not considering it, maybe this new ETS will prompt you to lean into that model. It will certainly allow you to gradually bring your staff back and maybe giving your staff some peace of mind. Although the standard is eliminating mandatory barriers and social distancing, again, I agree completely with Dan. Consider keeping these measures in place. We know it's a big concern of staff returning, and I think that it would give them a lot of peace of mind to know that you're keeping some of these things in place for their safety. We've heard questions, employee questions such as, how close will I be to my coworker when I go back into the workplace? Has my employer taken my safety into consideration? Will we have to continue wearing masks? I mean, of course, that's the big one, right? So we're going to cover some things that we thought would be useful for you going forward. Some things to think about. COVID, as we know, has changed the workplace probably forever. Work from home and hybrid models, we believe they're here to stay. Consider these statistics. Less commercial office space is being rented out, and that's according to Cushman and Wakefield, citing fewer tenants in commercial office buildings and employee office spaces. They remain vacant 60 to 70% of the day. Many companies are postponing or canceling plans to relocate their offices to increase their footprint. We actually did that. We were thinking about moving and increasing our footprint. We decided to stay right where we are, and I know many of our clients have done the same. Also, travel industry experts believe that business travel as we know it won't be exactly the same. Less travel for the average business person. Now we know we can do things virtually. In the US, remote work, this is kind of a big statistic, has increased 173% between 2005 and 2018. And I wonder, that's before the pandemic. So I'm kind of curious as to see what that number is, including the pandemic. 74% of companies plan to shift some of their employees or workforce to a permanent remote working. So if you're not convinced with that, here's a few more statistics around working from home. 26 million Americans were already working remotely, and that's before COVID happened. And that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 55% of businesses globally pre-COVID offered some capacity to work remotely, and 18% of the workforce telecommute on a full-time basis. So one of the silver linings of COVID, and this is a new statistic around working from home, and my son, who's a millennial, kind of expressed this to me. It's been reported that 30% of commuters save up to $5,000 a year in everything from travel expenses, parking, and even clothing. And for our young folks, that's big, because that's what my son said, Mom, that's really big, the money that I'm saving as I work from home during COVID. Companies, though, can also save money, and it's estimated around $11,000 annually for a part-time person working from home. So there's a lot of money to be saved from that, from these hybrid models. Survey out of Harvard Business suggests that 16% of workforce currently work from home will remain in that environment long after the pandemic is over. 77% of commuters, they cite that they're more productive at home. And I think that that's been a statistic that's been echoed for a lot of companies. According to Aetna, turnover is lower for about 5 to 6% lower for remote workers than office workers. An employee with very complex or non-collaborative jobs tend to perform better in a remote work from home environment than people working in an office. That study's out of the Journal for Business and Psychology. So I could go on and on with these stats, but I think kind of you get the picture of what we're talking about here. And if you have you thought about how you'll bring your staff back if you do? Some of the things that we thought of and that we think is a good idea, and some of these we've done internally, and that's, of course, bringing your staff back gradually over a 6 to 1 year process. It makes more sense from a productivity standpoint as well, but that gradual bringing them in gradually kind of gives employees also the sense of safety and sense of that you care about their safety. Surveys are the big one. We've done a few of these, but have you considered a return to work survey to find out how your staff feels about returning to the office or to the workplace? Do you get the sense that there's some anxiety among staff? I've heard that among our staff. Have you found out whether your staff has childcare problems that might be residual to the pandemic, difficult getting in-home childcare, or concerns over that daycare environments? for their little ones? Are you assessing the work environment, whether it's ergonomics or for safety? I think that's a really good idea prior to everybody coming back. And then have you thought about stress management or wellness offerings to help the stress levels or anxiety that people have? Also providing an element of fun, which really kind of takes their mind off of some of the fears and anxiety that they might have over returning to the office. And then there's the hoteling environment. So we know that there's going to be some staff that work in both the remote and and at home. According to a recent study, about 31% of workers, they want something hybrid. They want to be able to collaborate and be social, as well as be able to work from home, maybe when they're working on a project that requires a lot of intense focus. And that would be me. That's one of the things I love. I love the socialization of being in the office. I'm very excited to go back. We're just beginning to open back up, and a lot of us are getting our offices prepared to go back in. But we still want that ability to work from home when we think that we need to focus. So that means spending about 1 to 2 days a week in a traditional office setting. So businesses need to figure out how to accommodate those workers, and most will do that through either a hoteling area or shared workstations. And we are actually doing that. So think about how you plan on accommodating and cleaning these workstations after each use. You need to have a cleaning protocol and policies in place prior to your staff coming back. It comes down to a well thought out cleaning process between uses and some strict protocols. Things like cleaning checkoff lists, turning in, which could be kept on file. Certain small desk supplies that shouldn't be permitted to be shared. Think about things like pencils, pens, paper clips, tape, sticky pads, those kinds of things. These items, maybe the user carries those with them as opposed to having them at the desk and sharing them between users. The larger items, such as keyboards, monitors, desk, phone, all of the big items that you have on your desk, they should be cleaned, and they should be cleaned daily and between uses to between users. Also consider the use of UV light as an additional cleaning source. So current research indicates that UV light will kill the virus within minutes of contact. As a side note, UV light can also be used in your ventilation systems. I think that Dan mentioned that. And in addition to the MERV 13 AC filters, you can also use UV light to kill the virus. And that's also a comfort to employees to know that you've gone that extra step to put those better cleaning filters in there, and also using the UV light in the ventilation system. So cautioning, and I think Dan would probably echo this, that Cal-OSHA does discourage shared workstation items, especially those small items, but they don't go as far as prohibiting them sharing workstations, but you do need to have some protocols in place to protect your employees. I've been doing multiple webinars recently on the virus and the survivability on surfaces and what we know might be completely wrong about it. And I know that we're kind of feeling like we're at the end game of the virus, but know that the survivability of the virus outside the body may be much longer than we originally thought, i.e. UV lighting being another source of in a line of defense to killing the virus. I know that we're using them on our copy machines, things that our IT people don't want us to put a lot of wet cloth on. We're using the UV light for the source of disinfecting. Also consider the adjustability of the equipment, and this would be my ergonomist coming out of me. The adjustability, Dan's smiling, but the adjustability of the equipment in your shared area. You have to decide, determine how those equipment is going to adjust. Are you using height adjustable desks that can adjust to the individual users? Do you at least have keyboard trays installed that can be adjusted to the individual users? Consider the heights of the users that will be sharing a space. If you've got somebody who's 6'2" and you've got somebody who's 5'2", how are you going to accommodate them in the same space potentially? Unless you've got really great height adjustable desks desks, which we did do because of my urging. We got desks that go all the way up to 50 and all the way down to 24. So that's a really nice height range, and will accommodate pretty much that very, very, 5th and 95th percentile folks, and probably beyond, actually. And then what about monitors? They should be easily adjusted for distance and height. Best practice in this area would be articulating arms, not pole arm, but an articulating monitor arm in order to accommodate. So lastly, you don't want your hoteling or shared area to have a lot of traffic backup. So you want to have some kind of a rotating schedule and kind of vet that out prior to everybody coming back to the office. So those are just some of the things, some of the best practices, and some things that we've shared with our clients that have asked us how to navigate this whole return to the office. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over, because I think that we're going to do the yoga session towards the end. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Stephanie, one of the questions is about resources for health and wellness, things for people to a place to go to. And I know you're going to help us practice on one of them, but how would people get more information about some options for health and wellness strategies for their staff?
Yeah, wellness strategies. We do have a lot of resources. If you reach out to me, I think our last slide will have my contact information on there, as well as Jeannie's. And if you reach out to me, I'm happy to share some information that I have. I've created a lot of content around wellness and ergonomics. That kind of, that wellness and ergonomic piece, they just kind of blend so well together that I kind of like call them one and the same. And I'm always happy to share that collateral with you if you reach out to me.
Are you finding, some of our clients have told us that it's kind of all over the place, that sometimes it's time off, sometimes it's time together, sometimes it's, talking about stress, sometimes it's not talking about stress. Are you seeing any sort of themes emerging in, sort of the next couple of months that people should be keeping their eye considering?
Yeah, we've done a lot of touching in with our staff, trying to just get, making sure that we understand where they're at, and we've done the same with our clients. And we've had, over the past month, a lot of clients reach out to me. I've done a lot of stress management sessions with our clients, as well as internally. And I have to tell you that the one I did internally was so well attended. And this wasn't a mandatory training. This was just voluntary. If you'd like to join in, great. And we had a lot of people that joined in on that particular session. And then I had a lot of questions afterwards, and I had a lot of comments that this was so helpful, because what I tried to do with that session is not just say, here's stress and this is what it means. I tried to give them tools on how they can handle their stress in the moment and just ongoing. And I think that was what was most helpful to them, was that I actually gave them tools, as opposed to just saying, hey, we all have stress, So, but we are finding that is, whether it's anxiety about going back to the office, or it's just anxiety in general about the virus itself, we found that it's helpful to talk about it rather than to not talk about it.
We had the County Department of Mental Health people with us a while back, and they were definitely urging nonprofit leaders to talk about it, because everyone's feeling it and people are afraid to bring it up. And then the strategies for what to do next are sort of all over the place. But to your point, we have a couple minutes. So I want to make sure that you guys have time to ask questions before Stephanie helps us with our own mental health and safety.
There were definitely a few questions that we might circle back to Dan for, that were coming up towards the previous portion about vaccination requirements and documentation. And I think we had touched on it yesterday when we were prepping for this about, does HIPAA apply? Does it not? Where is privacy concerned? So some questions about, can you require employees to be vaccinated if they're providing direct services? Can you, have a voluntarily posted list of employees that have been vaccinated for the staff to see? So some more of those questions about just, what is documentation required? What can you do that doesn't violate people's privacy?
Okay, as far as vaccinations being required, That's actually outside of Cal-OSHA's jurisdiction, but the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing has information posted on their website that does state that employers can require vaccination. And in fact, it's been in the news recently that there was that hospital, I think it was in Houston, that suspended a lot of their workers. They mandated vaccines for the workers, and the unvaccinated workers were suspended, and the courts have so far upheld that decision. So this is going to actually, I'm sure, go to the courts for decisions. But right now, Fair Employment and Housing you can mandate vaccines. I know it was American Airlines stated that they're going to encourage vaccinations for current employees. New hires, a requirement for employment will be that they are vaccinated. The HIPAA violations, they have also determined that asking for proof of vaccination is, it's not a medical treatment, it's not a medical diagnosis, it does not fall under HIPAA requirements. So you are able to ask for that information, receive copies of the card. All it's doing is, documenting that you have either a copy of, or you have seen, or somebody has self-attested that they've received the vaccination, and you maintain that documentation.
And then we always encourage you to touch in with your attorney on this, and that's something that is probably just for practical reasons you want to touch in with your attorney on those questions as well.
Right.
Derek, do you have your hand raised? Because I know in the chat there's also something here around liability, but to your point about talking to lawyers, I just want to make sure we didn't miss you, Derek. If you had a question, go for it. And you guys should know that little person on Aaron's lap is Lila, who joins us.
Hello, Lila.
And she's vaccinated as appropriate for her age.
I did have my hand raised. This is a very. Thank you very much for pulling this conversation together. There's a lot of information here. That's a lot. I just sent the staff survey yesterday to get input on readiness around reopening the office and kind of seeing where my staff is and my team is. One of the things coming to this question around the requirement, right? We have contracts with schools, and schools are reopening. And in the event that a school district, we're not mandating the vaccine, right? We will be doing bi-weekly testing made available for people who want to take the test. We probably will have vaccines available like every so often. But if the school district decides that it's mandatory for third parties who are coming to do work on the campuses to have vaccines, right? Does that mean that I, in turn, for those staff members who are required, I have to mandate it for them as well? Like how does that work? You know what I'm saying?
That's a big old fat legal question right there.
That's a legal question. I'll ask,
yeah.
I will definitely ask the lawyer on that one, because I want to be fair as a social justice organization. We're trying to make sure that we're being mindful and creating a space of care for folks to be able to have that space to operate. But I also want to create a safe space for folks as we talk about reopening the offices. It's just, there's a lot of information, man. And as you said, there's a lot of things that people think they know, but aren't coming to meetings like this to really get the update. And this can get really messy really fast. So,
and Derek, and Dan was saying earlier, the guidance is just, the ink isn't dry yet. So I think there's going to be more information coming in the next couple of weeks as well to help sort some of this through. So don't feel alone. I think everyone's feeling like, what just happened and what does it mean to us?
And I would also add to that is, remember that CDC, CDPH, all of their information is guidance, but when it comes to workplace worker safety, those are regulatory. Cal-OSHA's requirements are regulatory that you have to comply with for employee protection. And again, because we don't have jurisdiction over the public, you have to take into account how you're going to best protect your workers from exposures to the public. So you're probably going to want to initially go with more stringent requirements, but definitely run those by an attorney, or if you're large enough that you have an HR person, they are quite often the people that will keep up with this type of information, because they are often in contact with other HR professionals or in contact with attorneys.
And I would also suggest, if you don't know Fisher Phillips, they're a great partner to Bolton. We do a lot of webinars with them. They are, to me, the top labor law firm in LA. Their website, it's Fisher Phillips, Fisher Phillips, PHILLIPS.com. They have a lot of free resources. They actually had a webinar today about the OSHA, Cal-OSHA standards at 11. But check their website, or if you have specific questions, we're happy to connect you with some of their folks. They do provide a lot of resources just to help, especially the nonprofits. So, or if you need the information after, just reach out to me and I'll connect you with somebody there. But we love free, right? So we want to make sure that you get access to what they provide.
We're happy to put those links in the chat and on the website as well. I want to make sure that we're careful about everybody's time, because I know everyone's busy, and we also have the gift of Stephanie's talents to share with us. So did you want to dive into that exercise? And then we'll make sure, to Dan's point, that everybody knows about the webinars that are happening next week.
Great,
I just
yeah.
added the webinars to the chat, the link to the webinars, and I also added the my PowerPoint in the chat. So if you can scroll through and find that, you can have a copy of it. And, like I said, the webinar link is in the chat now.
Thank you.
And we'll be following up with the recording, the PowerPoint, all the links that have been provided in the chat. So those will be coming later today.
Great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And all right, so what I'm going to be sharing with you is a little chair class, and I kind of abbreviated it because of time constraint. But this is a great way to manage stress. I think that if for time's sake, if there are people who really feel like I can't go through all these poses, and this is a chair class, it's very simple, very quick. You don't spend a lot of time on each pose. But the one thing that I will tell you, if you walk away with nothing, encourage your people to use that very last pose, if you will, Shavasana, which is the relaxation piece of yoga, that really short little meditative piece. I always tell people to just take a moment sometime during the day, whether it's 1 or 2 minutes, to just quiet the mind down, close your eyes, and just kind of block out all those distractions and just take a quiet moment for yourself. Really way to reduce some stress levels, especially if you're having a particularly stressful day. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, Aaron, should I stop sharing my screen so that you can pin me? Okay, let's do that.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, suggest it. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to unplug so that you guys can hear me on my speaker here. Can you guys still hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Very good.
So I'm going to walk back here. That's why I didn't have a screensaver on or a background on, because I wanted to go ahead and come back here to my chair. So this is a chair class. This is something that we've done internally. I've done this with many of our clients. Really easy to do, very simple poses, and I have my little cheat sheet here. Go ahead, and if you want to follow me, go ahead and sit. You want to be in a chair that's comfortable, preferably without wheels on it. Come to the front edge of your chair and just drop your arms by your side, kind of relax those shoulders. And we're just going to take a couple of deep breaths. We're going to inhale through the nose. And then exhale through the nose and the mouth. And this time let's inhale through the nose. And then I like to just sigh it out. And kind kind of just releases all the tension and stress you're feeling through the day. So another way, using breath, very great, very good stress reliever for you. The first one we're going to do is mountain pose, which we're really pretty much in right now in the chair. So we're seated in the chair, front edge of the chair, you got your belly button pulled into the back of your spine. You're going to inhale those shoulders up, and you're going to exhale and just release them down towards the floor. Like your fingertips want to touch the floor, and the crown of the head wants to touch the sky. So you've got your spine long, and this is mountain pose, very grounding pose. And then from here, we're going to go into what we call cat and cow. So we're going to bring our hands on our thighs. We're still at the front edge of our chair, and we're just going to do some rounding of the torso and kind of stretching. So we're going to inhale, and as we inhale, we're going to lift the shoulders up. We're going to open up the chest. We're going to slightly lift our chin. And then as we exhale, we're going to round the torso, drop the chin down, drop the head down. And then we're going to inhale, we're going to lift the chest, open the chest up, slightly lift the chin. And then again, exhale, we're going to round the torso, drop the chin down towards the chest. We'll do that one more time. We're going to inhale, lift, and we're going to exhale, we're going to round. That's a nice way to get some warm up of the body. Next one is saluting the sun. So we're going to inhale, bring the arms up. So your fingertips want to touch the sky, shoulders are released. And what we're going to do is a lateral stretch from here. We're going to drop that right arm down, and we're going to inhale, we're going to lift and lengthen out of that shoulder and open up the rib cage on the left side. So this is our lateral stretch. And then we're going to inhale those arms back up to center, exhale, dropping that left arm down, and lift and lengthen over to the left side. And again, inhaling to center, salute the sun, exhale, reach and lengthen over to our right side. And one more time, inhale to center, and exhale, lengthening over to the left side. And then inhale those arms to center, exhale, we're going to release them down by our side. And then we have what we call side angles. So we're going to open up the legs. I don't suggest this for anybody wearing a skirt, but sit at the front edge of your chair. Your legs are open, kind of in that open position. And you're just going to drop your right elbow to the right knee. And you're just going to lift and lengthen that arm overhead. So you're reaching over. So this is a side angle in the chair. And then we're going to drop that left elbow to the left thigh. And we're going to inhale, lengthen over to the left side. And we'll do that one more time on each side. We're going to drop right elbow down, lift and lengthen. And you know what? One thing that I notice that people do in class is they collapse the shoulder on this. Keep yourself open and lifted. Pull yourself out of that right shoulder blade and shoulder. And then again, dropping left elbow down, and inhale, exhale, lengthen over to the left side, and then drop it down to center. All right, next one is called eagle arm. So I would suggest this stretch, and I do this stretch in every single one of my classes. These next two I do in every one of my classes, but I also encourage this for office. So I use this for my ergonomics training. So the first one is called eagle arms, and it really does open up and stretch. The shoulder blade opens the shoulder blades, it stretches the scapula, and this is called eagle arms. So you're going to take those arms out, palms face skyward, and you're going to cross them in the front so that left elbow crosses under the right. You're going to hook the elbows together, bring the palms together, all this information, and raise those elbows up. And you should feel a nice stretch of the shoulder blades, opening the shoulder blades, stretching the scapula, and then release. And then we'll just do the opposite side. So your right elbow crosses under the left, pull them together and lift. And then release. Right, roll out the shoulders, back and down, back and down. And then the next one is wrist mobility. And this is the one that if you do a lot of typing on your computer, every 30 minutes, stop and do this stretch. First thing you should do is shake out those hands. Get that blood circulating back into the hands. Take that left arm straight out, shoulder height, fingertips pointed skyward. Take the right fingers over the left. And you're just holding it in place. You're not pulling towards you. You don't want any strain there. And then you're going to drop those fingers down towards the floor. You're going to take those fingers skyward. And one more time, you're going to drop them down towards the floor. You're going to take the palms skyward, and you're just going to pull towards you, but not excessively. You don't want to injure yourself here. So basically just holding it in place. So again, every 30 minutes, stop. Stretch out the hands, especially if you're doing a lot of keying and a lot of mousing. Right arm comes out, fingertips skyward, left fingers over right, draw them towards you. And again, dropping fingertips down towards the floor. Fingertips skyward. And last time, fingers down. Palm skyward. And again, shake it out. All right, so last one, most important one, and the one that you guys should love the most is just kind of sit back in your chair. So you want to use the backrest of the chair because you want to be able to relax back into the backrest. If your feet are having trouble touching the floor, put your feet on something, a box, whatever it is, to kind of elevate, to take the pressure off the back of the legs. You can drop the arms by your side. You can bring the palms to the thighs. This would be a grounding. Palms skyward would be open heart. So it just depends on where you are today. Find that position that feels most comfortable. Relax the shoulders. And then from here, just close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, go ahead and take a deep breath. Inhale that breath through the nose, taking the breath past the chest. So you're feeling the belly expand, you're feeling the lungs. And then you're going to slowly exhale that breath through the nose. Let's do that one more time. Inhale the breath through the nose, taking the breath past the chest, feeling the belly expand, feeling the lungs expand. And then just hold that breath for a moment. And slowly exhale. And with that exhale, just feel the muscles and bones relaxing. Relax the facial muscles and allow the jaw to fall open. Feel the shoulders release. Just find this quiet moment, quieting the noise and stilling the body for a moment. And slowly open your eyes, and that was just about 20 seconds or so. That wasn't very long, but you can imagine if you were to take some time to do a more intense meditation or relaxation, how good that would feel after you were done. So thank you. That was my chair yoga class for you today.
Well, that was a lovely gift for a Friday afternoon. And for all of you, our friends at Bolton and Dan and all our friends at OSHA, we so appreciate what you guys do and appreciate you making the time today. That was a lot of information to cover, but we're really glad to see lots of people here today. And from the chat, we're hearing lots of thank yous and seeing lots of appreciation. So with that, Aaron, I think we're going to let everybody go, right?
Let's wrap it up. Really great seeing everybody today.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.